If you can believe it, your mind can achieve it. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Athlete Podcast sponsored by Sports for Champions. Today I'm delighted to be joined by professional netballer Charlotte Dunkley. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first got into netball?
So I was 10 years old when I started playing netball, and I first found out netball was a thing through my primary school, just playing at complete amateur level. With mixed team, boys and girls, and then I changed school and netball was a big thing. So it was actually my PE coach that spoke to my mum and I about getting into a club because I was very tall for my age, always have been quite tall for my age. And from there I joined Western Park Blades Club based in Winchester down south. And I have been with them ever since. So started off under 10s, now playing Premier League for them. I think that's where I first found my love for it. I did the classic thing where I tried all sports, not necessarily good at all of them, but it was between a choice of athletics and netball for me, and I found that for me netball was where I wanted to be, just because of the community, and I felt like I really belonged because being tall in like a school setting is quite unique, and not everyone at your age is your height, and I think netball really made me was a place where I felt like I belonged and made me, I was really comfortable and could be myself, and it was a team sport unlike athletics where you are like competing for yourself. So I really liked that, and I think literally within the first few weeks I remember saying to my mum like I want to carry on playing, and just worked my way up from there.
It can be so important for young people to get involved in a team sport. It teaches you so many lessons about life and things like that. Was it really important in terms of your development as a person, like as a young person?
I think so, yeah, definitely. I mean, sport teaches you so many things. Like, for me, resilience has been massive. Like, you have so many setbacks, and it really does teach you like how to go forward and come back from that. And I think you do find like your people in like in your sport, so like you make friends for life, and sticking to netball has taught me so many life lessons, as well as just hard work generally, and like you just given things like most of the time, so you really do have to work for them, and that has taught me that no matter what part of my life I'm in, like netball has taught me you have to work hard for it if you want it, kind of thing.
Definitely. You mentioned your mum there. Are you a sporty family?
We are, yes. My dad is a big rugby player, used to play rugby to quite a high level, watches rugby all the time. My mum was a big dancer. We've all loved the gym, still do. We go family trips to the gym is our thing. My brother is also into rugby and a lot of weightlifting. So I think sport has been a massive thing. My parents knew they wanted me and my brother to be in sport from a young age, and at least just to have a hobby and make friends. I don't think anyone, including myself, expected it to kind of go to the level it is now, but I'm glad it has. And I think, yeah, without them and their impact on my sporting life, like I would not be where I was today.
Definitely, so important as a young person. Can you tell us a bit about netball and perhaps your position when you first started out?
Yeah, so when I started playing netball, I was, like a lot of people probably listening to this, didn't really know much about it, didn't know the rules, didn't know the general gist of it. To find out it's 7 players on a team, called goal keep, goal defence, wing defence, centre, and you have your wing attacks, goal shoots. So defence and attack, simple as that. As you get older, you find that your position bases a lot on your height. Your mid-court players are a bit shorter than everyone else, and the players playing at the ends are a bit taller. I started out as a defender, goal defence, goal keep, wing defence, didn't really have a set position, just knew I liked defending. And then kind of just gave shooting a go when I think I was about 15, 16, just to fill in for one of our shooters that was sick on the day. And we were like, wow, I shoot for school, I have a post at home, like I know how to shoot, but not necessarily very good at it. And straight after that match, I became a shooter.
Really? Is it something that you practice? Obviously you've got one at home. Is it something that you'd be out sort of in the evening kind of thing?
A lot of people will have a post in their back garden, regardless what position they are. Most of the time it's just to mess around with friends, But if you are playing to a high level, and I think at any level, at least from club, you are told and it's kind of drilled into you that you should be doing 100 shots a day. And I do that. I have a post at home and I have a post at university that I practice with, and a lot of teams will say like your practice isn't included in your training, so you have to make that extra time to practice, because the higher you get, the more important accuracy becomes, because people can match your skills, people can match your height and your like plyometrics and your speed, and it's really, as a shooter, that percentage of your accuracy that sets you apart. And if you're not putting up those 100 shots a day, not necessarily proving that you are, but if it doesn't, it's kind of obvious if you aren't on a match day situation, then it's detrimental to your future. And it's kind of the shooting aspect and the practice is really just defines how much you want it. And I say that to all younger players I come across. I'm like, you should be putting up 100 shots a day minimum. A lot of people put up 200 shots, but I understand not a lot of people have the time, especially if they're in school for most of the day.
Makes sense, yeah. You can imagine that at the higher the level that you're playing at, the less opportunities you have, so that accuracy per shot is obviously going to get more and more important. Can you tell us about your first experience of joining the club? I think you're 13.
Yeah, so played with Western Park Players just as a bit of fun. And then did my first trial, I would say, when I was about 13 for Surrey Storm Academy. And the way netball works in any franchise, a lot of netball players will know this, but those that don't, it starts off as like an academy, and then you go into like a PDP setting, so like a development pathway, and then you get into your national leagues, like age groups, so under 17, under 19, under 21, and then you have your senior Super League squads. I started in the bottom of the bottom in the little local hubs. Training with girls I already played with, so it wasn't like a new environment, just a new coach and a new venue for me. Kind of just worked my way up year by year until I was 16, and then I became a shooter, and I did have a big setback there where it was selection for the under 17 National League. And because I had changed from defender to shooter, that coach confidence in me had kind of dropped, because I wasn't experienced enough yet as a shooter to be their main selection, but I'm now a shooter, not a defender, so they can't take me as a defender. So it was not a year out, but it was a year where selection was very minimal, and I just had to go back and work really hard. Carried on working, and then the next year, still the same age, so still 16, got selected into the under 19 age group. So it just shows that it doesn't really matter what age you are. Like, if a coach has the confidence in you and give them a reason to be confident in you, that you can just achieve it. And I stuck in that under 19 pathway till I was 17, so 2 years in like netball terms. And then I did a year where I played both under 21s and under 19s, which was difficult because both teams want you to be playing for them, but on a day both teams playing at the same time. So you can train with both teams, but you can't play with both teams. So it was more, you're just kind of just told where to go and who you're going to be with on the day, which is fair enough. But I captained the under 19s that year, and it was a super successful year for us, probably the highest we've ever placed in that for that team, like in that age group. And then I aged out of under 19s, where even though I was only 18, I aged out because of the birth year. And how netball works is because I'm December 2003, I had to be January 2004 to be like eligible. So I just went straight to under 21s, still playing under 21s, just for a different team now, Saracen Mavericks. But the pathway is still exactly the same. And I think a lot of girls are now realising that even at those lower ages at the academies, it's still just as competitive as it kind of is in the older like age groups. And these days there's not much skill wise setting you apart from everyone. It really is just the opportunity that presents itself. I was saying earlier that Super League, you get older, and it really is just like, is there a space open for you to branch out into it? Because sometimes there's not. Sometimes a coach sensibly would choose to keep the same 12 players for the exact same next year. Especially if no one leaves and no one's injured, like they're going to keep the same players, because then they don't have to spend several months training and trying to learn how to bond as a team. So it really is just, it's the same with age groups. Like, if there's not a position available, that's the reason. Half the time you're good enough, but there's just not an opening for you to branch into just yet. And it is, annoyingly with netball, is kind of just a waiting game sometimes. Like, you can watch the TV and be like, oh, I can do the things she can do, but it is just the opportunity, and whether you're willing to kind of push for that opportunity. You can't just sit back and wait for it.
If we could take you back a little bit to when you just joined Surrey Storm, I know that you had quite a bad injury around that time.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about resilience, but I think if you could tell us a little bit about the comeback from that injury and how that worked out.
Yeah, so when I got injured at 13, it was quite a big injury for the age. Kind of unheard of in netball. The usual netball was just ankles, maybe the odd broken finger or ball to the face, like nothing major. But this was quite big, and it set me back, took me out for an entire year. And at that age group, at that age it was that age where you're just breaking out into the franchises. So I was devastated because I'd just been offered my first place in the academies, and to then basically turn around a few months later and say, oh, I can't play anymore. I'm injured, and there's huge understanding, like they understood it was completely out of my control. So all I could do was just focus on my rehab and listen to my doctors, which was one thing I learned from that, because they know what they're doing, and just put in the effort behind the scenes. So no one really knows how much effort you put into when you're coming back from injury, regardless of the injury. And to then obviously come back from injury and your position's been replaced, someone new's come in, someone just as talented as you. So that's kind of like a punch to the stomach. So you have that, okay, well, that drive, you can take it 2 weeks and be like, I'm going to give up now, there's no point carrying on. Or I took it as if, okay, well, it makes me want it even more. So I spent a lot of the time on the bench just watching, and if we were winning by loads or losing by loads, they then put me on. Until that position opened up and I was given the opportunity to start my first match, and I absolutely smashed it. All the hard work I put in behind the doors and outside of training showed, and then I got my position back, and I carried on starting, and I carried on playing, and I carried on getting the stats they wanted to see, like hitting 6 interceptions in a match kind of thing. And it's hard because obviously the girls you play with are your friends, so you have taken that position away from one of your friends, but at the end of the day, there's always that understanding that it's out of your control. It's the coach's decision, and they would put the best man forward for the job. And I think it taught me a huge amount of resilience. It's going to set you back, but it's how you come back from that matters. So a lot of people will just give up and think, oh, I can never do it again, my time's done. But I don't think it matters at any age that you can get injured and peak in when you're playing internationally, and it's how you recover from that and proving that you want it. So it's important to stay in contact with the coaches who are coaching you to show that you are putting an effort behind the scenes, and it's T-minus 5 weeks till you come back. So there's a countdown on, so people know she's coming back and she's going to want it more than ever. But I think you're going to have injuries throughout your any career, sporting career, and if you don't, then lucky you. But I think it's how you, like I said, how you come back from that, and if you give up, then be prepared for other people to give up on you, because they're not going to waste their time in sport. They want the best team, and the coaches want a winning team. So if you're not going to put in the effort, why should they? So that's how and that's how my parents used to tell me to look at it. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm a big believer in that. And it's how you come back from the cards that have been handed to you. So I was handed a poor deal when I was 13, but if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. And that's kind of how I like to look at it.
Where do you think that mindset comes from? Does it come from dealing with sort of transitioning positions, whether it be injuries, being left out of the squad and working your way back in? Do you think that's something that's inherent in you, or do you think it's something that's come about as a result of kind of pushing through these challenges? I
think it has come about. I had to deal with those kind of situations because of injury and that frustration of changing position and thinking, have I even made the right decision? I could have just carried on as a defender and my life might have been a bit simpler. But I think talking to my parents and expressing my frustration in all of these situations, and obviously they've been with me step by step, I'd have no one else besides me when I was injured. And it's their message that really got into my head that now you've just got to focus on yourself and focus getting yourself back to full health, because you're not useful to a team if you aren't in full health. There's no point going back still half injured, because then obviously I'm damaging my health, but I'm also not helping my team. So I think the way I was raised was massive, and having the experiences I've had, whether positive or negative, it's the kind of, if you choose to listen to people that have been through the same thing. So like my parents have been injured in their sports, they've all had setbacks, but it is like how you use your support network around you. Like, don't shut them out. Support's a massive thing, whether that's friends, coaches, family, because if they weren't with me, I probably would have just kind of given up and not seen the point in carrying on. And even to this level now, where I'm living away from home and traveling all around the country, I will still make an effort to call my mum and say, this has happened, like, how do you think I should deal with it? Or my dad, or even my like brother, because sometimes you just want someone to listen to you. And dealing with injury, I think a lot of people associate with just physical, but it is such a mental struggle, because you go from playing your sport to basically being able to do nothing, and almost like going back to like feeling like a baby and having to do the basics again and all the boring exercises, and it's a tedious process and it's exhausting. And you see people on court like your age and you're like, oh, I just want to be on court, but if you're not at full health, you can't do that. So you kind of just got to have like a strategy in your head and like a timeline. It's to like, okay, I'm injured now, but I aim to be back by June, that kind of thing. And keep your support network around you. That's all I'd say to a lot of younger players that are injured or are like bound to be injured in the future. So
important to have that support network. I know that your mum's played quite a big role.
Yeah.
Was she proud when you got your first call up from Scotland?
She was. She took me to my first trial, because I was only 16 when I trialled, so we both flew to Scotland to trial. And it was one of those where it's an all-day trial, and you trial and that's it. You have one day, a few drills to prove your ability, a few hours of match play. And not even hours, you have like 10 minutes on, and maybe only 10 minutes in your chosen position.
Wow.
To prove this is what I've got, kind of thing. And it's hard because obviously everyone's there to prove themselves, so like it is quite a selfish process, but coaches know that they're not blind. And it's hard because my mum kind of like don't let you watch, like your parents drop and go kind of thing. So I got back to the hotel and I told her all about it, and you have to kind of wait 48 hours to have it's a mass email to everyone, and there's just a list of names on there as to who's made it and who's not made it. And we read it through, and I saw my name, but I hadn't really read the email properly as to whether I was successful or this was a list of unsuccessful applications. We found out, and I was successful, and she was just super happy because she doesn't live in Scotland, like none of us do. We live down south, so I think it must have been really nice for her to kind of feel more connected back to her legacy, I guess, her like Scotland legacy. And my uncle lives up in Scotland, so it's always really nice to go up and see him. But she was ecstatic, and so was my dad. I remember getting home back from the airport, and it was a big celebration, and telling all my siblings and the extended family. And I suppose that's kind of my personality now. It just associates me with playing netball. You go to a family event, it's like, how's the Scotland netball going? And it's kind of just taken off from there. I mean, it was my first year in Scotland, and it was the first big selection to play Isle of Man in their senior squad, so our under-21 squad versus their senior squad, which is kind of unheard of. I was selected, but went into it kind of like, I've just been selected, like the chances of me even playing are very, very slim. And I played half match and played my socks off. I got my first cap, and she was there, classic mum with her phone, recording everything. Like, there's no need for professional photographers, basically. Like, she was there on the sidelines, taking all the photos at the end when I got my first cap, and she was super, super proud. And I think now my dad's also just as invested in the netball. He comes up or drives me sometimes to Scotland for the longer camps. He watched us play Wales in last April. So yeah, it really is. I think they're just both really proud of the journey, because I could have given up at any point, and they're very much, now that I'm an adult, are like, we'll be here if you need anything and if you need the support. But obviously they're already super proud of me, so regardless of the decisions I make in the future, like I've made them proud, and I think that's really important. It's such a nice feeling to know like all the hours they put in driving me all around the country and here, there and everywhere to competitions, the ridiculous like 4 a.m. wake ups, it's all for something. And I think that is a massive thing for like any athlete to know, like it wasn't all for nothing. And I think that's really important for my mum as well.
So I believe last year you changed team. You joined Saracen Mavericks.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that transition?
Yeah, so it was hard, I won't lie, because Surrey Storm was my family. Grew up with all the girls there. We'd just gone through the ranks together, and they were some of my best friends. Still in contact with them, so it's not like those friendships disappeared, but obviously you have a fear that is going to happen, because you go from Surrey and Hertfordshire. It's close, but it's not. It's far, but it's not close. And I remember having that fear of trying to tell them that this was the decision I've made, and it was from a professional point of view and for my future, and they were actually all really understanding, and they understood why I did it. And you can be upset to lose a friend and have them move away, but you can't be upset because they were like, we're proud of you making this decision because you're doing it for your like professional career. And it was really exciting. I was really excited because the Saracen Mavericks coaching squad is just insane. With Tamsin Greenway, Camilla, the facilities, the people, they're just all lovely. And it's a new opportunity because I've never been coached by any of these people before. Never played with any of these people before. So slightly scary, but it was worth it, I think. And I don't think I wouldn't change my decision. Like I say, everything happens for a reason, and I had a great run and great time with Surrey Storm, but it had come to an end and my progression wasn't developing as far as we wanted it to, so made the decision to move, and it was heavily supported by everyone I knew. And Scotland supported it, my family supported it, friends, Surrey Storm supported it, obviously Saracen Mavericks supported it. Although the only downside was it's quite far away from my university, so the travel commitment's a bit more than I was used to, but they are very understanding and very flexible, which is what you think you need as an athlete. Like, you can't be pigeonholed into certain areas of the industry, and you can't be pigeonholed into certain teams. So having that flexibility on when I can train and what times I train is super important, especially when I'm still trying to get a degree. So I'm really happy with the decision I made to transfer to a different Super League team this year. How does that work in terms of training? What's a typical day's training look like? Oh, I like this question because, like I say, a lot goes on behind the scenes. So general day to day, I play for 4 different teams. So Bucks for University, Western Park Blades, Super League and Scotland. So if I was to have a Scotland camp, let's say next week, the usual would be training with Saracens, whether that's under 21s or Super League, Thursday and Tuesday nights in St Albans. So it's about a 2-hour drive for me there and 2 hours back, and you train for 2 hours. And in the day also, you will get up early in the morning and I'll go do my strength and conditioning. So in the gym, weightlifting, the program kind of you've been given. Then in the day it's just lectures and any extra work you've got, or like work I coach as well. Wednesdays is match days for Bucks. Fridays and Mondays is Bucks training, as well as like conditioning sessions and plyometric sessions, and every day you're doing your 100 shots in the mornings. And then Friday night I would fly to Scotland. Saturday, Sunday I'll train all day and then fly back. So it's super intense. Wow. And if Scotland's not happening, then Saturday is matches and Sunday are matches. So lots of driving. My car's basically my best friend at this point.
I can imagine, yeah.
But it is super tiring and super stressful, and that's where the communication between clubs has to happen. Because if I feel like I'm too tired from Bucks the night before because we've had fitness testing, there's then not much reason for me to go to Super League training to do another fitness testing. And you'll find, any athlete, you'll find that September to December, that pre-season slog, it's fitness testing everywhere. Maybe like every 2 weeks, and you'll go up to Scotland and it's fitness testing because you have to have a certain fitness to even be considered for certain things. So if you're not hitting your fitness targets or what they assume is a goal for your position specifically, that just sets you back from selection. So you always have to be at peak fitness. And obviously you'll have the odd niggles and the odd like muscle problems. But luckily we do have physios on hand, and we do have S&C coaches there, rehab. Rehab's massively important, but sometimes I forget to do it, is you get back from like St Albans at midnight, the last thing I want to do is my rehab.
Break the foam roller
out. But foam roller, but you'll suffer in the morning for it, that's for sure. So it's super busy, a day-to-day week, as well as trying to kind of give back to the community, doing things like this, working for Sports for Champions, giving back to Oxford, like the schools there, like coaching, and my time with Hertfordshire, like Saracen Mavericks and Western Park Blades. It all really does go on, and I help coach our Bucks team as well. Just because coaches, it's a depleted resource. There's not enough coaches for netball teams out there. So you find like we have 4 Bucks teams, but we have 1 coach. So I sometimes like to help coach them. That's what I'll be doing the next few weeks whilst I'm on rehab. But it is exhausting, and I think when people have an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, and it's not just matches, you can't just turn up to matches and have no training. That's kind of just not how it works. People are shocked. They're like, oh well, people I play with at uni only have uni, and they're exhausted, and I tell them like, oh no, I'm now going to Hertfordshire. They just think it's crazy and they think it's ridiculous, but if you love a sport enough, you'll do it.
Yeah, you keep pushing yourself. Can you tell me a bit about it must be basically every single part of your life has to be geared towards achieving just even the training regime that you've got there, so 3 different teams minimum each week. Do you have to take a sort of granular approach to diet and nutrition, or obviously you're working so much, maybe it doesn't matter that much? I'm not sure how you do.
So a massive thing for me is meal prepping. I mean, I'm a uni student, I'm on a very limited budget, and so I budget what I have for the week, do my normal Aldi, Tesco shop, whichever I'm in the mood for. And it's kind of a Sunday night is probably the most like normal for me to do it, but I'll have an easy breakfast and it's oats, so you don't really have to pre-make those. It's very simple, just milk, and I maybe add some like Nesquik powder to give it some nice, but I'll put protein powder in basically anything I can. I'm big on fruit, but in a uni house it's quite hard because it goes off or people eat it, it goes missing. So I have a tendency just to buy that en route if I'm going somewhere, or keep it in my room, or just have it's weird, my boot in my car is filled with random things like bananas and Red Bulls and Lucozades, but meal prepping's big. Pasta, you could bulk make pasta, like it's ridiculous. Everyone's like, why do you need so much pasta? But they don't realise like when I pack food, it's for the entire day, because the chances are I leave in the morning and I won't be back till ridiculous hours in the evening. So take it into lectures, kind of just set up a base and finish everything there and eat there. And it's really, I focus on carbs and protein. That's my like main focus. If I don't have enough energy, you can't function, let alone train. So pasta, rice, really depends what I'm having it with. I'm big on pad thais. It's very easy as a student to make, like buy a pad thai kit, and they're super easy to just chuck chicken and eggs in and anything you really want. I'm not huge on prawns, but I know people like prawns in them. Fruit, I love my veg and fruit, but I tend to have it from frozen, which I think a lot of people think it's crazy, but you speak to any nutritionist, and like part of being international and Super League is you do have those conversations with nutritionists, and you do ask them the random questions like, oh, what's my best like recovery meal? And it's like, oh, I'm struggling to get in my veg and fruit, like what can I do? And they just say there's no nutrient difference between frozen and fresh, because the fresh is just frozen. That's how it is. So I have all frozen veg. Obviously I microwave it and defrost it, and chuck it into anything. I'm not a fussy eater, which I think really helps. I think everyone always asks me, what's your post like training meal or drink? I struggle to eat straight after training. I need about 2 hours, so perfect, because I'll have a 2-hour drive, but I can't eat straight then. But I know I need to get something in my body to replenish all the sweat and everything that's been lost during training. So I'm big on shakes. not the way a lot of people make them with like water and milk. I can't really do that, so a lot of it goes into it. It's more like a smoothie, I like to say. Big on chocolate flavors. I have a sweet tooth, and a lot of athletes will have a sweet tooth. It's just in proportion. So I'm big on chocolate milk. That's my go-to. Big like bottle of chocolate milk. That gets me through my drive, and then I get home and I can have a proper meal. I'm also big on like bars. Not big on like gels. I just don't like the texture of them. I think it's like a 50-50 kind of thing with people. But cereal bars, protein bars, they're expensive, but when I can afford them, I'll buy them. But I'm a big snacker, so it's kind of just like putting that through my day. So if I was driving to a match, I'd be eating like a cereal bar in the car along with a banana right before I play.
Favourite cereal bar?
An Alpen, like yogurt and strawberry.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Kind of mid though. What about a blue squares bar?
I do love a marshmallow squares bar.
That's gotta be the best.
That is, yeah, they are good. The only problem is where I have a sweet tooth, it's one, and then I'm like, I'll have another.
Yeah, they come in fours, which is
they come in fours. But no, and if a lot of the time as a student where I'm on the road quite a lot, meal deals are big for me, and it's kind of like what you select. I think a lot of people, when I told my parents this, they were quite surprised that meal deals are just as fine as a normal like homemade meal. Just depends what you select. Like you're not going to go in and have a Cornish pasty and crisps and a chocolate bar. Like if you're an athlete, like they always say go for the pasta or a saurine bar. Like I'm not big on saurine, but I know I've been told like they're really good for energy. I wouldn't know. I don't like them. I'm not big on texture, but I'm big on like my Baby Bells and my carrots and hummus and those kind of things. So big like pasta, and then I'll get my snack won't be crisps. It will be like the kind of like chicken skewers with satay sauce. Yeah. And then I'll treat myself to a squares bar or something like that. But I'm big on anything I can take in throughout the day, snacking wise, in small proportions is the way I like to do it. And I know that's sometimes unusual because people stick to very strict diets, and it is strict in a way where it has to be in proportion. Like I can't just eat anything I want, because if I did that I wouldn't be playing sport probably. And definitely would not have the energy to play sport. But it's all in proportion. Like, but you can treat yourself at the same time. Like I'm not going to say no to a Heroes from a Heroes box or a Celebrations or a Quality Street, like, because I know I do enough exercise to almost warrant having one.
Yeah, definitely. It's just about making smart decisions in what you do eat.
Yeah.
But not being too strict. That's good. Just listening to you there, the amount of food that you're going to have to eat, the amount of petrol just getting to and from places. Can you tell us a bit about how netball's funded?
So there's not a lot of money in netball. It's not an unknown piece of information. I think that's just because there's not the funding in it, especially for Scotland. Super League wise, there's not a lot of money in it, and it is primarily based off sponsorship and if you have a job. I at uni have a job or two every now and then to be able to afford my travel to and from. We do get a bit of funding from Scotland and from Super League, but not enough to cover everything. And I think that's the problem if you compare it to a footballer's salary. It's never going to match it, and I don't think that's the expectation. It's just more like, I don't want to have to be a uni student having 2 jobs and travelling this much and trying to, all my spare time going to work and trying to earn that money to be able to do what I love. So it's hard because it gets to a certain point where your parents don't want to pay for anything anymore because they've put in huge amounts of money already to your career. So I think Scotland are helpful in terms of contributing to flights or trains or whatever's the cheapest mode of transport for the day. But in terms of getting to and from, let's say I was doing St Albans for Saracen Mavericks, the money I got a month would cover about 2 weeks of the month.
Right, okay.
So it's huge, and then obviously you're travelling for bucks, you're travelling for all across, like just to the airport to Birmingham, like Oxford to Birmingham, still quite a big way. So I'm paying for parking, and it all kind of adds up. So the funding is hard, but that's where a lot of people say with netball, it depends how much you love the sport. If you love it enough, you'll find ways to make it work, which I do. Having a job and budgeting to the extreme. But I think hopefully, and then I think it looks like there will be more money coming into it, especially where it's growing. Like, it's growing internationally at a massive rate, and now there's, obviously we talked about the men's team coming in, and I think when there's more of a community and there's more people playing, there's the numbers to justify the funding. That's when hopefully you'll see it will be able to be a career rather than something you do on top of a career.
Yeah, and the success as well at international level, that obviously propels the sport kind of more than anything. It takes a big leap each time that happens. Can you tell us a bit about how Sports for Champions can maybe help out with that?
When I was approached from them, I was super keen to be on board with you guys, because I know it's a non-profit organisation, which is really important, and I'm big with working and giving back to the community. And to be able to give back to the community and be rewarded for my time at the same time is 2 bonuses in one. I'm able to give back to something that I would say I also struggled with, having someone to look up to and not really knowing the big names in certain sports and not having anyone in netball to look up to till I was old enough to kind of understand it. And I would have killed to have these kind of guest speakers come in when I was younger. And to be able to do that for younger people and pupils and children, just to give back to them and their parents and kind of bring that extra more excitement into their life and give them something to look forward to in the week, is, I think it's so rewarding, mentally as well. And to know that Sports for Champions help fund that for me and are keen to help athletes fund their sport so that they don't have to do what I do and pick up 2 jobs on top of university or on top of their sport, so that they can focus on their sport primarily. But in return, all we have to do is give back to our community, and it's not something hard to do. It's rewarding, it funds my sport, it brings smiles to kids' faces, and parents like to know that their kids have kind of experiences that not a lot of people get to have. So I think it's exciting, because I had never heard of something like this before, and I know it's growing at an astronomical rate, and I think to be part of something that's growing and has such a positive impact on the country is super exciting, and I would never have turned down the opportunity.
Definitely. I'm sure there's lots of young netballers out there ready to be inspired. Can you tell us a bit about what kind of legacy you'd like to leave in your sport?
I'd like to leave a legacy of confidence, I suppose. You don't go into a sport confident, but you can come out of it confident regardless of what age you are or what standard you're playing at. And probably a legacy of thankfulness, because you can't, as a child, get anywhere in your sport without your support system, without your parents, without your grandparents, uncles, aunties, friends, family friends, driving you everywhere and taking you to all these competitions, putting your name out there. And I think I want to leave a legacy of just, I don't know, I suppose, thankfulness. I want people to be able to give back to who they can, but just a legacy of, I suppose, being proud of myself and people being proud of me. I don't think I can do anything in the sport that would be astronomical to change, but I suppose the best I can do is give back and encourage the younger generations to get involved in a sport like this, so that there can be the future of funding for it. But I suppose if I did have kids, I'd like to leave a legacy that they're proud of, that they can be like, oh, my mum's Charlotte Dunkley. Or was Charlotte Dunkley kind of thing. So that's definitely what I want. I want the future generations of my family to be proud and excited over things I have done. Yeah. Definitely.
And are you somebody who sets sort of short, medium, long-term goals for yourself?
I set all of them, I suppose. Short, I probably take it day by day. I want something I can achieve every day, regardless how small it is. Long term, definitely, as we were talking about, long term, I want to make an impact in this Scotland setup. I want to do all the senior competitions, the Commonwealth Games, the Senior World Cups, the Olympics, if ever netball does go into the Olympics.
You would think at some point.
You think definitely, and I like to think whilst I'm still playing netball it will happen. nothing against the Olympic Committee if it doesn't when I'm too old, but as long as it happens one day. Medium goals, I suppose, looking at this summer with the Youth World Cup qualifiers coming up. Super competitive squad we have this year, and a lot of great talent, making selection just that bit harder, frustratingly. So just to be selected for that is, I suppose, a medium goal, and then obviously to go and hopefully come top 2 to qualify for the actual Youth World Cup in Gibraltar. And if that does happen, I suppose another medium goal is going to that and showing everyone what Scotland can do and what they can bring, especially when you have the likes of Australia and Jamaica and New Zealand all there as well for their under 21 age groups, best in the world. Like, you want to be competing at that level. Short-term goals, I suppose, is I just take it match by match, like day by day. I always set myself the goal to learn something, whether that's hopefully netball related, but obviously I have a degree, so I like to learn things on that as well. Short-term goal, I like to make sure I learn something new each training session or have developed myself in some way or another. I'm big on reflection, so a short-term goal for me, kind of like a New Year's resolution, I guess, is to really reflect on everything I've done in a day. Think to myself, is there anything I could have done better? What went really well? And if something went really well, taking that into the next day and kind of just building on it. And if something didn't go well, then something needs to change. I'm big on that, but obviously I'm aware, like, it's hit and miss, because sometimes you don't have time to even think about what you're doing tomorrow. All you're going to do is just get into bed and sleep. But I'm big on taking it day by day, because I don't want to overwhelm myself with my schedule. So if I take it day by day, but with the looking into the future for these big competitions coming up, then I think I'm going to achieve big things.
Definitely. You'd be a fool to doubt you. And then finally, do you have any advice for a young person maybe to looking to start a career in sport, or maybe netball more specifically?
I think talk to anyone you can. Communicating with the industry is big. Not necessarily becoming best friends with them. Asking advice. If you go to a netball match and you go to get your autograph at the end, ask them something. Ask them you've been thinking about, or like simple as like we had just talked about, what do you eat? Like, I don't know what to eat. Or comment on their post, or DM them, or like email them, or email their agency, or get your mum to do it or dad to do it. I think not having answers to questions that you're thinking is the problem, because you don't want to get it wrong and you don't want to always wonder what if. So if someone came up to me and asked, like, they need to know that we're more than happy to let you know, to like tell you this information. And for you to reach out to us, it's nice, because it's nice to know you have a small fan base, and it's nice to know you have people looking up to you. And I'd say probably the last thing is just have fun with it, because if you lose your love for it and you lose your enjoyment for it, you're not gonna want to do it. If you feel like it's overwhelming and you're not having a good time with it, that like take some time out. Like, as simple as that. Like, take a few weeks and then come back to it, and you can kind of take those few weeks to realize, do I actually like it, or do I just feel like I have to do it? Because if you're not having fun with it, like, you probably won't progress the way you want to either. So just make sure you always have fun with it, and just thank your parents for driving you all those hours as well, because no 4 a.m. wake up's fun for anyone.
Definitely. Very important to thank our parents. I think that's a great note to end it on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Ali, more than welcome, and thank you to everyone joining us at home. We'll see you next time. Cheers.